you decide to retire early. Why did you decide to step away from the game?
Well, my last season, I stepped away, you're right, in 1981 was the 1980 season. And it's always a difficult thing, and I've not really ever told the story, complete story, I guess. I certainly didn't at the time because I didn't want anything reflecting there was going to be too much distraction for the team as it was, and or any distraction is too much. But I talked to my teammates. I went on a motorcycle ride first, shipped our bikes from Hawaii to Oakland as we used to do in the day, and we'd ride our bikes to Muskogee, Oklahoma, for skydiving championships, and some guys were competing, and I was just jumping for fun. And on that bike ride over to Muskogee and on the way back, about 3,200 miles total, I decided that I really could not go back and play for the family that was running the team. Now, Billy Sullivan, who was the owner of the team at the time, was a great, grand, old Irishman. A lot of great stories, and I always have and still do have a lot of aloha and appreciation and admiration. He gave me my first job out of college with the New England Patriots, and 6 great years. So my conversation with him was really, really difficult because I admired him and respected him. His son, Chuck, unfortunately, was an attorney who ran a lot of the team's business. And they really put the screws to Leon Gray and John Hanna when they came to jointly come back and negotiate for the contract. They did the same thing to Leon Gray, Sam Cunningham, John and Leon and Sam Cunningham. And then when Darryl Stingley was hurt, I was a player representative, and we had sued the team in the league because the day after 1 year was up, 366 days, Chuck Sullivan called me up, Darryl's attorney called me up first, Jack Sands, and said, "You're not going to believe this, but Chuck Sullivan just called him and said they're canceling Darryl's medical coverage." Now, they had the right to via the contract, standard player contract, but who does that to somebody who gave them so much, number one, and number two, is still in a life support system? So we initiated the legal proceedings against the team and the league. The family with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Rooney family, they called a meeting together of all the owners, all the teams, and said, "We can't do this." And they put together a catastrophic fund for Darryl. But the lawsuit had gone forward, and I stayed with it for 2 more years. And when they found in favor of Darryl, then my job was over with, and I retired. And that was the hardest thing I'd ever done up to that point in my life, was to go tell Mr. Sullivan that, because he hadn't really done anything wrong, although he allowed that to happen, his son's decision. The fans were incredible and still are, the New England fans. I felt like I was leaving them, and I was leaving my teammates. These are the guys that made my life, and the fans and the coaches, the wonderful, incredible experience that it was. So I went home with a heavy heart. I flew in one day, and I flew out the next. And when I got home, my best friend in the whole wide world, as you'll say, World Classman, was my chief pilot for that charter service I mentioned, said, "Howard Cosell called while you were gone today, and he wants you to call him right back." He says, "Very important." And, we talked earlier about Howard Cosell stories with All World and everything else. Everybody would pull my leg or beat me up. So I was sure. Howard called and said, he needs to hear from me. He goes, "No, I'm serious. He wants you to call." He said, you need to be on a plane back to New York tonight. Fly to San Francisco in the morning and go to New York. So I called this number fully expecting it to be some type of, if you want your carpets cleaned, call, Stanley Steamer. So, but it was Mr. Cosell, Howard Cosell. And he said, "You need to get back to New York pronto, number 81. Lou Narlich, who now runs all of ABC, has asked for and expects a meeting with you, requested your presence, and John Martin, who's the new head of ABC Sports, will be attending this meeting, and yours truly as well. So please, it's first class. A limo will pick you up, and we expect to see you at 5 p.m. on the dot at ABC headquarters. Good day, Click. Holy smokes. So I took the same bag of clothes that I'd taken with me to New England, washed them real quick, and made the late night, 11 midnight flight. And, next thing I know, I'm sitting with those three gentlemen. And Howard Cosell got me the job at ABC. And I was phenomenally grateful for that. And Frank Gifford and Don Meredith and guys would work with me, and working with Keith, Al Michaels, and the greatest of them all, helped me out here with Keith
Jackson.
Keith Jackson, thank you. I was thinking too much about imitating him with, whoa, Nelly, remember his last name. But those guys, again, are mentors in a whole different world. And so I did surfing in Morocco, skydiving in France, surfing in Hawaii, and college football, and just having the time of my life when this coincidence thing was part of the book. And I called Keith Jackson to ask him his opinion. I was covering surfing in Hawaii at the same time the Pro Bowl was happening, and Bill Walsh, they'd won their first Super Bowl in Super Bowl 16 against the Bengals. ABC asked if I'd go down to the stadium, the Pro Bowl, because he was one of the coaches as the Super Bowl coach, and have an interview with the new Super Bowl coach. And I did. And I found out from that interview that my high school basketball coach, who was another, like a second father to all of us, Merv Lopes, who made a name for himself by beating the number one team in the nation with a small Hawaiian college basketball team. Ralph Sampson beat those guys in the Rainbow Classic in Hawaii. He and Bill Walsh had gone to school together at San Jose. Merv was the Coach Lopes was the dark-skinned Hawaiian, and Bill Walsh was the light-skinned Irishman or whatever he claimed to be. And they put together and boxed together and everything else. And I saw a lot of Bill Walsh in Merv, and I saw a lot of Merv and Bill Walsh. And so he said, well, listen, Merv called me up after the interview, and he said, Bill wants to have dinner with us tonight. And I knew there was something rotten in Denmark, and I said, Coach, what's this all about? He said he wants you to come back and play for the 49ers. Tell him to save a meal, and out of due respect to the great coach, and wonderful guy, we had a great interview. I said, I've got things I've got to do. I've got to get out to the surf area, and I got to set up for tomorrow, and got to do this and do that. Mm-hmm. And he said, Russ, just come to the meeting. So there's my coach. And he presented the offer. He said, we're trying to get all the best players we can at each position, which was a real honor, because he had Charlie Young, who was a really good player out of USC. But it was towards the end of Charlie's career, and it was at a high point in my career. So, it was a natural blending, and I learned a lot from Charlie when I got there. But after about 3 or 4 months, I went ahead and said, okay, and I played 8 more years. And I owe Bill Walsh a lot. God rest his soul. I owe him a lot and his family, and the great, great coaches and teammates and fans, the 49er faithful in the Bay Area and throughout the world. To be able to have the type of relationship with fans, which is never going to go away, and the fans in San Francisco, an NFC team, an AFC team, East Coast and West Coast. I don't know of anybody, you mentioned earlier about making accomplishments as a young player who had never, just played 1 year of college football and drafted after his senior year. You start putting all these pieces together with the coaches and the players and then the fans that were treating me like family. And so who wouldn't give their very, very best and then know how to give their very, very best because of the mentors in the game, starting with it goes back to my Little League baseball coach, but that's another story. I've been lucky to have those people grace my life, and I try to give as much back as I can.